Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're breaking down a really powerful framework for anyone out there who's looking to, reignite their professional life. We're talking about a concrete 60-day blueprint designed to get you back in the driver's seat of your career.
But before we get into the how, let's talk about the why. Let's start with the feeling I bet a lot of high achievers out there know all too well. That quiet sense of being disconnected, maybe a little uninspired, or just plain stuck at work. You know that feeling, right? That nagging thought that the passion you used to have has kinda faded.
Okay, so let's really dive into this. Because, to solve a problem, you first have to be able to name it. And what we're actually talking about here is a state known as professional disengagement.
And look, this is so much more than just having a bad day or a rough week. We've all been there. This is different. It's this persistent state where you're basically just going through the motions. You're doing your basic duties, sure, but that discretionary effort, that extra spark, the thing that drives creativity and real excellence, it's just gone.
Okay, now this is where things get really eye-opening. Just take a look at this table. See how the professional signs, over there on the left, have this direct, almost spooky echo in our personal lives on the right? That drop in productivity at work? Well, it often shows up as losing interest in the hobbies you used to love. This is the key takeaway. It's not just a work problem. This is a whole life problem.
So the big question is, how do we even get trapped like this in the first place? Well, let's get into the psychology behind it and see how this thing builds into a really powerful, self-reinforcing cycle.
It pretty much always starts right here, with a really deep-seated fear. A fear of failure, a fear of being judged, or just that nagging feeling of not being good enough. This right here, this is the trigger that sets the entire cycle in motion.
So that fear, it becomes the fuel for what's called maladaptive perfectionism, basically an unhealthy kind. We're not talking about having healthy high standards here. No, this is an intense, almost crippling drive for flawlessness, where anything less than perfect feels like a complete and total failure.
And what happens when your goal is an impossible standard of perfection? You get trapped right here in analysis paralysis. You know what I mean? You overthink everything, you over-research, you second-guess every single move. And all that does is prevent you from making any move at all. You're literally too busy planning to ever get started.
And this brings us to the final, crushing stage of the cycle. All of that overthinking, it just leads to mental exhaustion, full-on burnout, and eventually just apathy. But here's the absolute worst part. This inaction, this lack of progress, it feels like it proves that your initial fear was right all along. And that just locks you into the cycle even tighter.
Okay, so how in the world do you break out of a cycle that powerful? Well, the key might actually surprise you. It doesn't start with some huge, heroic action. Nope. It starts right here, inside your head, with a fundamental shift in your mindset.
You see, most of us operate under this old mindset. We think we have to feel confident before we can act. We have to feel ready before we can start. But the coaching mindset, it flips that script completely. It says that action is what builds confidence. You don't wait for everything to be certain. You take small steps, and that's how you create clarity.
And I absolutely love this quote from Dr. Susan David. Courage is fear walking. It just perfectly captures that mindset shift, doesn't it? True progress isn't about getting rid of the fear. It's about taking that first step while you're afraid. It's about moving forward anyway.
And this right here, done is better than perfect. This is the ultimate antidote to that crippling perfectionism. As soon as you embrace this idea, you're free from the trap of analysis paralysis. It shifts your whole focus away from chasing some impossible standard and on to just making progress. That's it, one step at a time.
Okay, so we've got the mindset shift down. That's huge. But now let's get practical. Let's look at the tools of the trade. Executive coaches have this whole toolkit of proven strategies to help you actually translate that new way of thinking into real, tangible change. And this whole toolkit is really built on 4 essential pillars. First up is self-awareness and purpose, basically figuring out what truly drives you. Then you've got goal setting and action, which gives that drive a clear direction. Next is well-being and resilience, because, you can't pour from an empty cup. And finally, connection and accountability, because let's be real, nobody succeeds all alone. Put them all together and you have a really powerful system for change.
All right, now for the main event.
Let's take all of this, the psychology, the mindset, the tools, and put it all together into a concrete, actionable plan you can literally start using today to reignite your drive.
And the plan itself is elegantly simple. It's broken down into 3 distinct phases, each one lasting 20 days. Now, each phase has a very specific focus, and it's designed to build on the last one. The whole idea is to create steady, consistent momentum without it ever feeling overwhelming.
So, for the first 20 days, your mission is really simple. Gain clarity and build that all-important initial momentum. We are not talking about massive changes here. This is all about small, manageable actions. Things like journaling to figure out what's really draining your energy, or taking one small goal and breaking it into tiny, micro-actions. The point is, just to prove to yourself that you can start moving again.
Okay, so once you've got some of that momentum going, phase 2 is all about turning those small actions into consistent habits. This is where you really start to practice that good enough principle we talked about. And you start making strategic choices, like delegating a task that drains you to make room for one that actually excites you. And this is so important. You have to track and celebrate your wins, no matter how small, to keep that motivation flowing.
All right, now we're in the final phase, and the focus shifts to making this last. It's all about sustainability. You're not just reacting anymore, you're getting proactive, planning for the future. You're taking a hard look at your boundaries, you're asking for feedback to sharpen your approach, and maybe most importantly, you're practicing self-compassion. You're acknowledging that progress is never a straight line. It's a journey with ups and downs.
And this is such a vital point to remember. This 60-day plan isn't some magic finish line. Think of it more like a launch pad. It's a system designed to build the habits and the mindset you need to sustain your drive for the long, long haul. It's about turning a short-term fix into a lifelong practice.
Look, this entire framework is designed to do one thing: empower you to take back control. The blueprint is right here. The psychology behind it is clear. The steps are all laid out. So we'll leave you with just one final question to think about. What's your first microaction? What's that one tiny step you can take today?